Airlines are about to ruin your summer trip. Not with cancellations, not with delays, with a set of new carry-on rules being enforced at departure gates this summer that millions of travelers have absolutely no idea are coming. Bags that passed without question last summer. Items that sailed through security for years. Personal item allowances that every frequent flyer memorized and relied on completely. All of it changed. Some of it changed dramatically. And the airlines implementing these changes are doing so quietly, bearing the updates in terms and conditions pages that nobody reads until they are standing at a gate agent's desk watching their bag get checked at full fee. But here's what makes this summer specifically dangerous for unprepared travelers. 3 of these new rules carry fees so severe that a single violation costs more than the original flight ticket. Stay till the end. This will save you serious money. Rule 1. Personal item size. Enforcement has become automated. Airlines have been threatening stricter personal item enforcement for years. In the summer of 2026, the threat became infrastructure. Multiple major carriers, including American Airlines, United Airlines, Ryanair, EasyJet, and Wizz Air, have installed or are actively installing automated bag sizing measurement systems at departure gates and boarding areas. These are not the old metal sizer frames that gate agents occasionally gestured toward and rarely enforced consistently. These are camera-based and sensor-based dimensional measurement systems that assess bag size automatically, flagging non-compliant items before the passenger reaches the gate agent. The practical consequence of this shift from human discretion to automated enforcement is enormous. Under the previous human-enforced system, a bag that was marginally oversized, a centimeter over in one dimension, slightly overfilled, compressible enough to fit when challenged, frequently passed because gate agents exercising individual judgment chose not to escalate a borderline case. Busy boarding processes, time pressure, and basic human pragmatism created inconsistency in enforcement that frequent travelers learned to exploit. Automated systems do not exercise discretion. A bag that is 1 centimeter over the allowed dimension in any axis fails the measurement. The flag goes to the gate agent as a confirmed violation rather than a judgment call, and the gate agent receiving an automated non-compliance flag has significantly less institutional flexibility to wave it through without processing the associated fee. The fees attached to gate-checked bags under these new enforcement frameworks are not modest. Ryanair's gate bag fee in 2026 reaches levels that exceed the cost of many of its promotional fare tickets. American Airlines gate-checked bag fees on domestic routes have increased significantly from previous years. And across budget European carriers specifically, the gate bag fee is now a meaningful revenue line item that airline finance departments actively track and optimize enforcement around. The practical action for summer 2026 travelers is specific and non-negotiable. Measure your personal item against the exact dimensional limits of every carrier on your itinerary. Not the limits you remember from last year, not the limits shown on a third-party travel website, but the current limits published directly on each airline's official baggage policy page. Measure your bag when it is packed as you intend to travel with it. Not empty, packed. And if you are connecting between carriers, apply the strictest dimensional limit across all carriers on your itinerary to every bag you are carrying. Rule 2. Liquid rules are changing, but not the way you expect. The 100 milliliter liquid rule has defined international aviation security for nearly 2 decades. In summer 2026, that rule is in the middle of the most significant transition it has experienced since introduction, and the transition is creating confusion that is causing delays, secondary screening, and passenger frustration at airports across the United Kingdom, European Union, United States, and Australia. Here is the specific situation as it stands in summer 2026. Advanced CT scanning technology. 3-dimensional imaging systems capable of assessing liquid threat potential without requiring removal from bags has been deployed at varying levels of implementation across major airports globally. The technology was designed to eventually replace the 100 milliliter restriction entirely by identifying genuinely dangerous liquids regardless of volume. But the implementation timeline has been inconsistent across airports and inconsistent within airports across different security lanes. Some lanes at the same airport are operating under new CT-enabled rules, allowing liquids above 100 milliliters to remain in bags. Adjacent lanes at the same checkpoint are operating under legacy rules requiring 100 milliliters compliance and bag-out liquid removal. The passenger who successfully passed security with a full water bottle at Heathrow Terminal 2 last month may face confiscation at the same airport's Terminal 5 this summer, because the equipment deployment and corresponding rule application is not yet uniform across the facility. The specific guidance for summer 2026 travelers is to apply 100 milliliter compliance as the default standard for every security checkpoint, regardless of what previous travel experience or online guidance suggests about specific airports. If the checkpoint you encounter operates under CT-enabled rules, your compliant liquids will pass without issue. If it operates under legacy rules, your compliant liquids will also pass without issue. The cost of default compliance is zero. The cost of assuming CT-enabled rules at a checkpoint still operating under legacy standards is confiscation of items that cannot be retrieved once surrendered to security. Additionally, and this is the update most summer travelers are unaware of, the European Union's revised aviation security framework implemented in early 2026 has changed the approved container type requirements for liquids in certain member state airports. Containers must now be clearly labeled with content and volume. Unmarked containers, including refillable travel bottles without labeling, are subject to additional screening and potential confiscation at EU airports, applying the revised framework regardless of volume compliance. Label your travel containers. Default to 100 milliliters compliance. Assume nothing about the specific checkpoint you will encounter until you are standing in front of it. Rule 3. Lithium battery and power bank rules have tightened significantly. Power banks are now the most scrutinized carry-on category at international security checkpoints globally. Not weapons, not liquids, power banks. In the summer 2026 enforcement environment around lithium battery containing devices reflects a level of regulatory attention that has intensified, dramatically following a series of in-flight incidents involving thermal runaway in lithium battery devices across multiple carriers between 2023 and 2025. Here is the specific regulatory landscape as it applies to summer 2026 travelers. The International Air Transport Association updated its lithium battery guidance in late 2025 in ways that individual carriers have translated into enforcement policies, varying significantly enough across airlines that a power bank configuration legal on one carrier can be non-compliant on the next carrier in the same itinerary. The core rules that apply across virtually all international carriers in summer 2026. Power banks must travel and carry on baggage only, never in checked luggage. This rule has not changed, but the capacity limits and quantity limits have tightened across multiple carriers. Several major carriers, including Singapore Airlines, Emirates, and Qatar Airways, have reduced their permitted power bank capacity limit from the previous 27,000 mAh standard to 20,000 mAh for the summer 2026 season following updated IATA guidance. A traveler carrying a high-capacity 26,800 mAh power bank, entirely compliant under previous policy, is now carrying a non-compliant item on these carriers. Quantity limits have also tightened, where multiple carriers previously permitted up to 5 spare lithium batteries or power banks per passenger and carry-on. Several have reduced this to 2 spare batteries or power banks above 10,000 mAh capacity per passenger. The enforcement mechanism at security is the capacity declaration. Security officers at airports applying strict 2026 IATA-aligned rules are asking passengers to declare power bank capacity, often requiring packaging or device labeling showing rated capacity in milliamp hours. Power banks without capacity labeling, including older devices whose labels have worn away or generic products that never carried clear capacity markings, are being held for additional screening or confiscated at strictly enforced checkpoints. Check the capacity of every power bank you intend to carry. Verify that capacity against the specific policy of every carrier on your summer itinerary. Ensure capacity labeling is clearly legible on the device or its packaging. And if you are carrying multiple power banks, count them against the quantity limits of your strictest carrier. Rule 4. Food in carry-on is under new scrutiny. Bringing food through security has always involved some level of inconsistency between airports and individual officer judgment. Summer 2026 has formalized several categories of food-related carry-on restrictions in ways that are generating genuine passenger surprise and frustration at checkpoints across major international airports. The specific changes affecting summer 2026 travelers involve 3 food categories that have historically passed through carry-on: screening without consistent challenge, and are now generating systematic scrutiny at multiple major international entry and transit points. Homemade food in non-transparent containers is now flagged for additional screening at a significantly higher rate across United States. TSA checkpoints following updated 2026 screening guidance. The practical recommendation from TSA's own updated traveler guidance is to pack food items in clear containers that allow visual inspection without opening, reducing both the likelihood of additional screening and the processing time when additional screening does occur. High-density food items, including hard cheeses, nut butters, hummus, spreadable dips, and similar products with dense homogeneous consistency, are now classified under liquid-adjacent screening rules at several European Union airports, applying updated 2026 security frameworks. Items in this category above 100 milliliters in a single container are subject to confiscation at affected checkpoints, regardless of whether the passenger considers them solid food rather than liquid. This classification shift affects a category of item that millions of travelers carry routinely, and that most have never considered liquid adjacent under any previous interpretation of aviation security rules. The awareness gap between passenger expectation and current enforcement reality on food items is significant. Pack food in clear containers. Apply 100 milliliters equivalent volume caution to any dense spreadable food item in your carry-on, and expect that items which passed without question in previous summers may generate additional screening questions in the summer 2026 enforcement environment. Rule 5. Gate agent discretion has been formally restricted. This is the rule change that frequent flyers, particularly those who have historically relied on charm, status, or simply asking nicely, are going to find most jarring. Airlines have formally reduced the scope of gate agent discretionary authority over carry-on compliance enforcement at multiple major carriers in 2026. This is not an informal tightening of culture. It is documented policy change, implemented through updated gate agent training programs, revised enforcement protocols, and in several cases, performance measurement frameworks that track gate agent compliance enforcement rates. The business logic behind this change is straightforward from the airline perspective. Inconsistent carry-on enforcement creates operational problems. Overhead bin capacity is genuinely finite, and bins that fill before boarding completes create cascading delays that cost airlines measurably in operational efficiency. Automated bag measurement systems generate objective non-compliance data. Gate agents who routinely waive automated non-compliance flags create audit trails that management can review. The practical consequence for summer 2026 travelers is specific. The strategies that worked for years. Asking the gate agent nicely, explaining that the bag has always fit before, invoking frequent flyer status, compressing the bag visibly to demonstrate approximate compliance, are less reliable than they have ever been. Not because individual gate agents are less human, but because the institutional framework within which they operate has changed in ways that make exercising discretion in favor of the passenger more professionally costly for the gate agent than enforcing the policy. Status does not protect you from automated measurement systems. Elite frequent flyer tiers on most major carriers provide overhead bin boarding priority, which means you board earlier and have greater access to available bin space. They do not provide exemption from carry-on dimensional limits. The single most effective strategy for the summer 2026 gate environment is arriving with a compliant bag. Not a bag you believe is probably compliant. A bag you have measured against the specific carrier's specific limits with a measuring tape while it is packed as you will travel with it. Rule 6. Overhead bin allocation is being enforced by seat zone. Multiple major carriers including Delta, United, American, Lufthansa, and British Airways have either implemented or are trialing formal overhead bin zone allocation systems in summer 2026 that enforce which bin section specific passengers can use based on seat assignment and boarding group. This is not merely a boarding sequence change. It is a bin access change. Under zone allocation enforcement, a passenger in a middle economy seat cannot store their carry-on in the forward overhead bin sections allocated to premium cabin passengers, even if those sections appear empty when the economy passenger boards. Gate agents and cabin crew are actively directing passengers to use bin sections corresponding to their seat zones, and in strictly enforced implementations, bags placed in incorrect zones are being relocated by cabin crew to correct zone sections before doors close. The specific impact on summer 2026 travelers involves two scenarios that are generating the most passenger frustration. Connecting passengers with tight connection times have historically benefited from positioning their carry-on in forward cabin bin sections, allowing faster deplaning access when the aircraft arrives. Zone allocation enforcement eliminates this strategy for economy passengers on carriers implementing strict zone enforcement, and passengers with carry-on bags that exactly meet dimensional limits but are relatively bulky in all three dimensions, the bag that fits but takes up significant significant bin space are finding that zone-allocated bin sections fill faster than previously because premium forward sections are no longer available as overflow. The effective available bin space for economy passengers is reduced even when total aircraft bin capacity remains constant. Book early to secure forward economy seat assignments where zone allocation enforcement places you in an earlier bin fill sequence. Board as early within your zone as boarding sequence allows. Carry the smallest compliant bag your travel needs permit, because summer 2026 overhead bin availability in economy zones is tighter than any previous summer in the post-pandemic travel era. Rule 7. Sports equipment and specialist carry-on categories have new restrictions. Golf clubs, ski equipment, surfboards, bicycles, these have always involved airline-specific policies that required individual verification before travel. But in summer 2026, several categories of specialist carry-on and personal item that previously occupied a gray area of relatively informal policy have received formal written restriction updates that are being enforced at departure gates across multiple major carriers. Musical instruments, specifically instruments carried as personal items or carry-on rather than checked, are subject to updated size verification at several major carriers including American Airlines and Delta following 2026 policy clarifications. Instruments that previously occupied the ambiguous space between personal item and carry-on are now categorized explicitly under one or the other classification with corresponding dimensional limits and fee structures applied at boarding. Photography and camera equipment, specifically professional camera bodies, multiple lens configurations, and associated grip and lighting accessories configured in camera bags, is now subject to carry-on classification review at certain carriers that have updated their professional equipment policies. Camera bags that exceed carry-on dimensional limits and have historically been waved through on the basis of equipment value are being measured against standard carry-on limits at automated measurement checkpoints, displacing personal item capacity and requiring compliance with carry-on dimensional limits that racket bags frequently exceed. Verify the specific classification and dimensional treatment of any specialist item in your carry-on plan against the current 2026 policy of every carrier on your itinerary. Do not rely on previous travel experience with the same item. Policy clarifications that formalize previously ambiguous categories are being implemented mid-season and may not be reflected in guidance you researched before booking. Rule 8. Checked bag fee structures are changing the carry-on calculation. This final rule is not a security rule or a dimensional compliance rule. It is a financial rule, and understanding it changes the entire economic calculation around carry-on strategy for summer 2026. Travel. Multiple major carriers have restructured their checked bag fee models in 2026 in ways that create specific scenarios, where checking a bag is now financially equivalent to or cheaper than the risk-adjusted cost of attempting to travel carry-on only with a borderline compliant bag. American Airlines, United Airlines, and several major European carriers have introduced advanced purchase checked bag discount programs in 2026, allowing passengers to purchase checked bag allowance at booking for fees significantly lower than the same allowance purchased at the airport or gate. The discount spread between advanced purchase and airport purchase checked bag fees has widened at several carriers, creating a scenario where the advanced purchase checked bag fee is modest, the airport purchase fee is substantially higher, and the gate check fee for a non-compliant carry-on exceeds even the airport purchase price. The traveler who books without purchasing checked bag allowance travels with a marginally oversized carry-on relying on historical gate agent flexibility and encounters the automated measurement systems and restricted gate agent discretion of the summer 2026 enforcement environment can end up paying the highest fee tier for the least desirable outcome. Buy checked bag allowance at booking if your travel needs require more than a strictly compliant personal item. The advanced purchase economics of summer 2026 make this the financially rational choice for any traveler who is uncertain about carry-on compliance, or who simply wants to travel without the stress of enforced dimensional verification at the gate. The carry-on gamble that paid off for years is less likely to pay off this summer than at any previous point in the post-pandemic travel era. 8 rules. 8 ways. The summer 2026 travel environment is different from everything your previous flying experience prepared you for. Automated bag measurement replacing human discretion. Liquid rules in transition creating checkpoint inconsistency. Power bank capacity. Limits tightening across major carriers. Food items entering liquid adjacent classification. Gate agent authority formally restricted. Bin zone allocation changing overhead access. specialist equipment categories receiving formal policy clarification, and checked bag fee restructuring changing the financial logic of the carry-on decision entirely. The travelers who have a good summer are the ones who verified everything before they reached the airport. The travelers who have an expensive, frustrating summer are the ones who assume that what worked last year still works now. You are now in the first group. Share this with everyone traveling this summer who deserves to know before they get to the gate. Hit the like button. Subscribe for more travel intelligence updated as the rules change. See you in the next one.